Testing 1, 2, 3. This will be the July 24th, 2014 City Council Workshop meeting.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order City Council Workshop meeting, July 24th, 2014, approximately 7 p.m. Moving on to agenda item 2, our only agenda item, discuss, make recommendations on board/committee handbook. Since it was your work.
I have there's a handout on that table. Is that right, Lenore? That you might want to follow along with. Before I get into the separate pages of the handbook, there's an overriding theme that I'd like to address, and I've put it here in this one-page handout tonight that you have in front of you. It regards the current status of the materials that address our boards and recommendations that I'm making to correct those problems. First of all, most, if not all, boards are addressed in the city code. Some are addressed in both the city code and a board charter, and some are addressed in the combination of city code, board charter, and board bylaws. Needless to say, over time, these documents have become conflicting and have incorrect provisions. There are duplicative provisions abound in these documents, and this is not necessary. The city code and other document provisions have never been updated and thus contain obsolete, inapplicable references. Some boards are currently allowed to create their own bylaws and procedures. Except where this practice is authorized or required by Florida statute, for example, the retirement boards, this is both unnecessary and potentially problematic. My recommendations to the council are these. To the fullest extent legally permissible, remove board information from the city code. And I will later follow up with specific code sections recommended for deletion to the council. To, except for boards governed by Florida statute, for example, the Code Enforcement Board, the Retirement Boards, and the CRA, establish the City Board's Handbook as the sole establishing and governing document for city boards and adopt the handbook by ordinance. 3, put all board information in the handbook, including necessary Florida statute provisions, and only in the handbook. This will ensure the elimination of duplications and conflicting provisions. It will also facilitate keeping board information current and relevant, since there will be only one place to check for board information. And 4, except where Florida statute requires otherwise, rescind all bylaws and separate procedures and stop creating or authorizing them. Create charters only by council action and only when actually necessary, and include those charters in the handbook. Bottom line is simply state it correctly in one place only. Keep it simple and state it in plain English. Those are the overriding principles and recommendations that I'm making.
Okay.
Getting into the...
Do we want to comment on this, or do you want
Sure.
to continue?
Well,
okay.
actually, however you want to do it.
Let me just, since there's any comments on this sheet from anyone?
No.
Okay, thank you.
The amount of material that had to be covered for this was beyond voluminous, and it was too much to get done for one workshop. So the workshop this evening will cover sections 1, 2, and 3, leaving the details about each board for a second workshop. Section 1 is an introduction to Satellite Beach. My feeling is that when someone volunteers to serve on a city board, they should have some feeling of investment in the city. And in order to have that, they need to know something about the city's background. We get new folks that come in, they want to serve, and that's terrific. But this allows them to have that connection with the city that enables them to best represent the city on whatever board they're serving on. So I'm proposing that we have a mayor's welcoming letter, which is written there to be at the front of the packet. And by the way I envision that this will happen, these 3 sections we're covering tonight will apply to all of the boards. And the way I envision is that the city clerk will have these materials. When Jane Doe comes in and gets appointed to a board, let's say she gets appointed to code enforcement, she will get a bound packet that contains all of the first 3 sections that apply to all boards, and then she will also have the section in section 4 that relates to the code enforcement board. So that what I envision is that there will be no question that can be asked about a board that is not answered in this handbook. And, excuse me. So going on with the introductory part, and by the way, I'm going to stop and I'm going to thank Barbara Montanaro for helping me. She did a lot of the research for me, and I was very grateful for her help. She also acted as a sounding board so that when we came to things that we found, and we put our heads together to try to figure out what they were actually saying. And I also want to make the point that in preparing this material, I covered everything I could find regarding city boards, Florida statutes, city code, city various papers that the city had on the various boards. And I found, of course, a lot of conflicting provisions where I had something conflicting with what was in the city charter. For the most part, I put in here what is in the, not the city charter, the city code. I put in here what was in the city code, that being the top of the hierarchy. So, and I also want to thank John Fergus. He's the one who compiled all this information in the city profile. And I think that anybody who looks at these 2 pages will be absolutely astounded to realize how much this small city does and the kinds of services and volume of services that we provide. On the second page, under the police...
Can we go over this page by page instead of going through it and then going back, or section by section?
I was going to try to do section by section.
Section, okay.
So that way we wouldn't get,
And on the second page, under the police department, I realized that the Police Athletic League was not put in here, so I will be adding that under Police Department, Community Services / Volunteer Programs. The first thing will be the Police Athletic League, Satellite Beach Police Athletic League. The next page in the introductory part is the organization chart. This is current as of today. This is how we are structured. And the city history has not been completed yet. There will be a truncated version that will go in here, and I will be giving that to you at the next workshop.
Okay. First section here, questions?
Yeah, I have some comments. I think the mayor's welcome letter is nice, although, and it should be specific to the board member. I think that's what the intent is, and to the board that they're on. But one thing I am concerned about is the second paragraph, or third paragraph. And the mayor, you're signing this. Keep in mind that you may be the first contact people have with our city government. And may quickly form their opinion of Satellite Beach based on that contact. That, to me, is kind of, I mean, it's a welcome package. I just think that's a little threatening. I don't know if it wants to be reworded.
In what respect?
I just,
The third paragraph down?
The third paragraph.
Where it says this handbook?
No, your participation. Keep in mind the second sentence. I just think it could be worded differently.
That sentence is in a letter that goes to the new board members now.
No, I haven't seen it, but I just think it could be worded differently in kind of a different manner that's not as harsh. Keep in mind that you may be the first contact people have with our city government. They may quickly form their opinion of Satellite Beach based on that contact. It's, should be, appreciated and whatever. Again, I'm not signing the letter, but I just think it could be changed. That's my opinion.
Great, thank you. Let's keep going.
And then I don't know where we came up with the motto, "Where progress prevails." Can someone fill me in on that?
Yes, that was been the motto of this city from the day one that Percy Hitchcock
Okay.
did from day one. It used to be on signs and on letterheads and all that stuff,
Okay.
too. Any other questions?
Not on the first page.
Okay, Mark?
Lorraine, we're back under the Recreation Department, and we've got, I'm on the Police Department page. Under Fire Department, you've got CFAL listed there. CFAL's also been involved in the Recreation Department as well. I mean, Carrie did a lot of courses and education through CFAL as part of her rec department area too. I don't know if you're happy with where you got it there, just in Fire Department, or if you want to put it in rec too. I just know all the positions that we had coming in doing lectures and presentations and the Caring for the Caregiver series, Carrie had put all that stuff together, every single aspect of it, so.
The structure under the Recreation Department, except for the number of annual user visits, is all facilities rather than classes or programs.
Okay.
Under the Fire Department, it's programs as well as the EMS.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was structured that way.
Okay, I just didn't want to look like we're slighting her, because this lady's been a big part of this, so.
Yeah. Terry saw this and she approved
Okay,
it.
that's fine.
Again, questions on any of the first pages that we have gone over? Okay.
Yeah, did you have any more,
Question?
Mark? or-
No,
I
I'm
have-
good.
I
Okay,
didn't get
so-
through there, I just went through the page one. The city history, I'm not really sure we even need that.
Okay.
That's great, but I don't really think we need that. We did a kind of a nice summary there, nice kind of welcoming letter from the mayor, but I don't really think we need to include the entire city history in a board member package.
Okay. I think the reason for that there is if we have a new person that moves into our city, that they get a feel of, what the city's, how it was developed, where it's gone, things we've done, just the history of where we are up to today with the city that this person could have just moved into, or just getting involved in with the city. So, my personal feeling is that it's, usually this is, in a lot of cases, people who are new getting involved in boards. And I think that knowing the history of our city could be important. But I think that's the reason it was, projected to be there. Mark?
The only thing, and I don't know what the city history is going to say, the only thing that I can also do is kind of act as a cover sheet for media that stops by and wants to know something about the city before they start interviews with the city manager, that sort of thing. It might kind of change the direction of an interview if the reporter has some inkling of how the city was developed and its philosophy. So, again, I don't know what your city history is going to say, but I see it as somebody walking in from the media and also saying, what are we looking at? And it might be, again, with the city history, with the grant experience that you've got, Lorraine, that might be something that we could pull from in the future for the grant, the rationale for why we're doing this particular grant or that particular grant based on our city history. So.
Why would the media have a handbook for a board member?
No, I mean,
it's in our budget, it's all over our webpage, there's CDs about it.
If I was a reporter and I went into Winter Park and I wanted to do my background on that city, this would be a really quick, easy way to do that rather than have to dig. So
Give them a board member handbook?
No, this will be on the, I'm sure will be on the internet, so they can take a look at it as well.
But all the
And it could
history
be
is in our budget.
It could be a cover letter for any number of purposes. Courtney could hand it out, whatever she wanted to hand it out to. That kind of.
And again, just real quickly, it says, be provided at the second workshop. So my feeling is I'd like to really see what it
see what it
says and
is.
entails, because it's really a blank page here for right now. So,
You're going to find it very interesting, and one of the things it covers is where the city motto came from.
We just appointed somebody to a board just recently that has only been in the city a short time, and I think it's important that this information be in there. I'm in favor of it being in there. It's part of what Satellite Beach is, so.
It's an interesting history.
Yeah, let's wait and see what
Very
it is, and
reasonable.
we can go over it when we get it.
Cheryl, any other pages that we've got to
No.
so far? Is there any questions from anyone? Okay, at this time, so we don't get too
Amen.
far into it.
Yeah.
I'll open up for public comment if there is any on the first section here.
You got that correction, right?
What?
Lower junior high, middle school,
I can't hear him.
Delora, thank you.
Delora,
Delora is a middle
Middle
school,
school.
not a junior high any longer.
I didn't see that. Okay.
It says Delora Junior High School.
Yeah.
And it's Delora Middle School.
thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the audience? Okay. Lorraine?
I only send my kids to obedience school. In section 2, for simplicity and clarity, I'm proposing that all permanent panels be called boards and all temporary or ad hoc panels be called committees. And then that eliminates, one of the things it does is eliminate, every time you talk about something about the city's boards, we're saying boards or committees, committees or boards, and just say boards. And then this also says that everything about the boards in here also will apply to the committees. And this will require changing the names of two of our boards. And we'll come to that when we start talking about the boards. On volunteers, and much of this stuff right now is material that is already in existence in the city, that the city is using. But I've looked at so many things, I cannot tell you specifically where each of these paragraphs came from. But on volunteers, we're saying that they're all all board members are volunteers, reimbursed for expenses. On eligibility, everybody must be a registered voter in Brevard County residing in the city, except for the CRA advisory recommending that be changed to board, and the library board, which allow for non-residents to be members. And they cannot hold other staff positions in the city. Appointment.
Can I comment on eligibility?
Do we want to get down to the first page, and then we'll go back and do it?
On appointment, this is the procedure that we're using now. So there's no change there. Under alternate members, this is putting it in writing that all alternate members are expected to attend all meetings to become knowledgeable about board business. They shall sit with the primary members and participate in board discussions, but they may not make motions or vote unless they're substituting for an absent primary member. And then this is a provision here for how to deal with substituting the alternates, and this is in effect right now for the Board of Adjustment. So I'm just lifting that and applying it to all of the boards in terms of alternate A and alternate B. It just gives a consistent way to handle that. Under the term of office, this got to be real interesting. If you'll note there in the red, current terms for our boards, 2-year terms for beautification, crack, library, rec, retirement boards, and Sampson's Island. 3-year terms for the Board of Adjustment, Code Enforcement Board, per Florida statute, CPAB and PZAB. It appears that there was no rationale for creating the terms of office for these boards, and so my suggestion is that we make them uniform for all 3 boards, since the Code Enforcement Board must be 3 years by Florida statute. And also, under Florida statute, the police and firefighters retirement boards, the terms of those offices may be set from 2 to 4 years, so that fits with the 3. And we could not find anything in the Florida statute in terms of what the term must be for the general employees retirement plan board. So the 3-year term will fit all of our boards. And then representing the board, no member may speak or act without, unless authorized by a majority of the board to do so.
Thank you. Questions on the first page?
Yeah, eligibility says in accordance with Florida Statute, Chapter 112, board members may not hold any elected or staff position in the city. Under Florida Statute 112, board members that are solely on advisory boards can hold 2 positions. I'll have the statute here. I'm not going to spend any more time. I spent hours going through this, but I think that needs to be looked into because you can hold dual offices if it's a solely advisory position. And
What's your citation? What's your citation?
you want me to go through the
Just give me
law
the-
now? It's Florida Statute 112.
What? 112 point what?
Well, you're going to have to give me a minute to look it up, so bear with me. Hope you don't mind waiting. I have to
well,
look it
let's-
up. I'm just asking to look into it.
Hold on, just
I'm
one
not going to
second.
read the whole chapter. If you've got something, give me the specific
Okay, well,
citation.
wait, Cheryl. Everybody, please. Cheryl, will you just, when you get that, please give it to Lorraine or give it to the city manager to pass on to Lorraine on which one that is, okay? And that way, we know we have
Yeah, we don't have to
we have a
deal with-
question here, and
Yeah, we
we
need to
will,
check on it.
we need to check on it, and we will do that.
Yeah, if you're going to
Okay?
reference a Florida statute and make a statement, you better make sure that.
Well, that's why we're asking you
correct.
for
So
that-
here's the
that number.
statute. I will go through it and let you know which
Okay.
citation.
Thank
I can, Jim and I talked this afternoon, and he couldn't make it tonight because he's at his conference, but I was just prepared to make a list for him to look into, that you all
Great.
There
wanted
you
him to
go.
look into. So
I don't think
do
I
you
should
want me
have to do it.
that?
That's fine. You can bring it up, that's fine.
So it's Florida Statute 112, Courtney, that regarding board members that are solely advisory positions, they can hold positions on both. It's when it's not a solely advisory position where there's an issue. And then board members may not hold any elected or staff position in the city. The staff position, we have board members that are on boards. They're ad hoc. Or I'm sorry. For example, the Police and Fire Pension Board, a fireman and a police officer are on those boards. So to make a blanket statement under Florida Statute 112 that a staff person can't be on a board is simply not true for the Florida statute, which is 162, that governs pension boards. So that's another legal issue that Jim needs to look into, because Alan sits on the pension board, Parks and Rec, yeah, Carrie sits on there. So to make a blanket statement that no staff person can sit on a board is inconsistent with
I've got your
what we
point.
can do.
We got it.
Okay.
On this page.
To state that no board members, you must not have a conflict of interest with the board on which they wish to serve. The reality is you're on a board and you may run into a conflict of interest, and it's your job to fill out the proper paperwork, disclose there's a conflict of interest, and abstain from voting. So that blanket statement also needs to be looked at. Happens all the time. You can't just make a blanket statement and say you must, if you go on a board, you must not have a conflict of interest. So that needs to be looked into.
No, the statement is correct as it's written. You cannot have a conflict of interest with the business of that board. There may be individual items that come up where there is a conflict, and that's different, and that's covered elsewhere.
Well, then it needs to be descriptive and say you may not have a conflict of interest with exactly what you said, not with the board, make it more descriptive, because a lot of people have conflicts of interest when they serve on board, and they just have to fill out the paperwork and recuse themselves from voting. And they can participate in the discussion, they just can't vote. I'm a little concerned about saying that we will determine individuals' expertise. I know under code enforcement, under Florida Statute 162, they talk specifically about which people should serve on the board, realtors, people that have engineering backgrounds, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're going to come up with expertise criteria, we need to list that for the board members. It's too subjective other than what's listed in Florida Statute 162. Under code enforcement, I don't know how you would come up with areas of expertise for board members other than the code enforcement board, where under Florida law, you're required to pick certain people, such as realtor, people with engineering degrees, people with architectural backgrounds. And if none of those people are available, then you can choose someone else. So I just think that's subjective, and I think it needs to be looked at. And I think the terms, too, I would like Jim to look into code enforcement board. I don't think we really have a choice on those, the cycle and the term on that one, under Florida Statute 162. And that's it for that page.
Okay, thank you. Any other
I
questions?
think I just finished saying that Florida statute requires a 3-year term for the Code Enforcement Board. And that's why I'm recommending 3 years across the board for all the boards.
Well, I disagree with that, and that's why I'm asking Jim to look in it. I have that statute as well. Again, I can sit here and look through the citation, but
We will,
I
make
would
a
like Jim
note.
to look at that.
We'll make a note of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone on that particular page? Okay, moving on.
Okay, the next,
I was going to do the whole section to the audience when you're done, but
why don't we,
just, we'll take it. I'll open it up for public comment on this section. On this page, please.
David Schechter, Sally Beach. Excuse me, voice of mine. Term limitations, 2 terms. I think that's really awkward when don't have enough people to serve on boards. Right now, over 50% of your board members have served more than 2 terms.
David, in the beginning, what did you
Okay,
say,
I'm sorry.
term?
Maybe I get. Right now, when I did a quick look through the boards, and over 55% of your board members have served more than 2 terms. And so I guess my question is, and also you've got about 12 vacancies. So enforcing a 2-term limit gets awkward. I think you can make that judgment when the terms are come up for renewals, and you make the judgment as to whether or not you want that person to serve or not. So to me, this is a personal opinion, based on my experience here. It goes up and down. Sometimes you have people waiting in line to get on boards, and other times, like right now, we're hurting for people. So it does go up and down. I admit it fluctuates over the years. In the 30 years I've been working, it has. But to put it in here, to have it, to term limit at 2 terms, I think is unnecessary for us. That's just one personal opinion. This is a workshop, so you can decide next time if you want.
I don't think that limited the term.
Let me ask him a question.
Okay, go ahead.
David, what about the proviso that says unless no other qualified individual has applied for the board? You know, sometimes we've had an abundance of riches where we've had multiple people trying to get on these boards, and we always had that policy for 2 terms in place so that when we had new faces coming forward, they could be given the opportunity unless the person going off contribution to the board was so critical that the council wanted to reappoint them. So my question to you is, do you feel that the clause, unless no other qualified individual has applied for the board, takes care of that issue about what happens when we don't have anybody?
I just think that's your determination. When people apply for the job to start with, you make the judgment what board you're going to put them on. Either they apply and tell you which ones but if they have 2 or 3, you will make the final decision. And to me, that's the same thing when they come up for renewal and you got 3 people in line, then you pick one of the people in line.
Pick the best one for that.
Pick the best one at the time. That's your judgment. And you make that judgment all the time on every board, basically every board, except for the one the employees are on, I admit. They vote, they're elected by the employees, so that doesn't be a point. But those you appoint, you guys have that authority and responsibility, in my book, to pick the best people for the board.
Would you strike that whole sentence, or would you strike that sentence and say something to the effect of the number of terms of office shall be determined by the council?
That's fine with me. You work on the wording. I just strike it, because to me, I think that's your responsibility to pick the right people for the boards. And you pick from the people who volunteer, and that's your responsibility.
But my question is...
I hear what you're saying. I'd have to think about it. But my tendency would be to strike it, but if you come up with new wording, we can all look at it. Just take it as one to take a look at.
Lorraine, the way you've got it written, it says unless no other qualified individual has applied to the board, gives you that latitude to continue reappointment of somebody.
Well, but I think it says unless any other, you could always argue someone else is qualified to it. I just think it's up to this,
Yeah, I agree.
It's up to the council.
Or the city council deems that the member's expertise is still needed.
Yeah, that'd be all right, too.
What I'd like to do on this is write it and wordsmith it, and then these questions that we have from this workshop that we need to have answered, whether it's by statute or wording here, that we write down, and then city manager comes back with that to us for you in your next presentation.
Well,
And this might take 3 meetings instead of just 2 workshops, but then at least we'll get it right.
Okay, but this part right here, this issue is strictly a council thing, it's not a statutory thing. And I'm going to need some guidance from this council in order to bring another document back.
Okay?
I mean, I don't disagree with David at all, but I think this sentence is okay as it is. You can continue to reappoint the same person if their value is there. That's how I read that when I first read it. So, I mean, I'm agreeing with what he's saying, but I think that this also agrees with what he's saying.
I think so, too.
Right.
Any other questions?
So how do you two feel?
You know, I understand the concern that David is bringing up. I kind of see that this sentence gives us the latitude to do what we may need to do if we want to appoint somebody for more than 2 terms. If there's a way of writing it so it's a little more succinct, that we don't necessarily have to limit people to 2 terms if their expertise is, I mean, maybe it can be worded just a little bit different. I like the concept. I mean, we've done this for years. We've always reappointed people to boards that were people that did a good job, showed up, were conscientious, came to all the meetings. Those are the people that we were always looking for. And when their 2 terms were up, we generally reappointed them.
But
And
I guess
we had the latitude to do that, and maybe
Why-
not having anything in here at all, we still have that latitude. I mean, if we strike the whole thing, that's what we're here to do, and we don't put term limits on it at all.
Well, I think that's it. If there's someone good in the board, I just think, members are limited to 2 terms. That's kind of a negative right there, I think. So what we've always done is we've always tried, why don't we just strike that?
No.
There is no limit. We are the people, or whoever is sitting council will determine if the person is voted back on the board or not.
I think it's fine the way it is, and one of the deterrents, which I've seen, is there have been other applicants that have come in, and you've reappointed over and over. Some people have been on boards for 16 years, 22 years, and so new people have come in that have moved into the city. Don't frown at me, you can look it up. That have come into the city, and then automatically other people are reappointed, and it deters new people from coming in and then reapplying. I've been here, I've seen it, I've watched people, new to the city come in and just like, no, we're reappointing over and over and over, even though you've had fresh applicants. So
But we can do that right here.
that's what I'm saying. So I like the term limit, and also we have term limits. What's the difference? I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, okay, then let me, I'm just.
I mean, you shouldn't be on the board for 22 years.
Okay, that's an opinion. Members are limited to 2 terms, and then you read the rest of it, they are not limited to 2 terms. If we want to keep reappointing that person because his expertise is there, we can appoint him, and he could be with the city for 30 years.
Right.
I mean, if he's that good, I mean, you want good people on it. And so what you're saying is you agree that they could be reappointed and reappointed and reappointed?
Right, but what I'm saying is if you have, and I've seen it, if you have new applicants, you need to take them seriously based on their expertise, rather than just automatically, I've seen it, reappointed, and you have other applicants that have been here, but I've never seen anybody be replaced on a board because someone new has come in and applied.
Okay.
Well, I have.
I have.
Well, I haven't.
If you don't-
and
Been around a lot longer.
I know.
Okay, so anyway, you agree with the way it's written?
Yeah,
right here?
I think it says it.
I'm not much on terms limits, only from fact, too, that I just, feel there are great people and you need knowledge sometimes. If you don't have that old knowledge on the board, it's not saying that that person's not a progressive thinker and comes up continually with new ideas. We've always been very good at people coming up with new ideas. They're forward thinkers. So,
Well, there was one way you could soften this sentence, which you're not going to like, Lorraine, because it's not specific, but afterward, it says, you could put members are generally limited to. That gives you the opportunity to have latitude into a wider reappointment, but you're just putting the word, it's philosophical by putting the word generally in there, and she's hating it, I know it.
She's writing it down.
Yeah, so she can cross it out. But that's the only thing, that's a philosophical thing. Then you've kind of got a philosophical thing that you can, if somebody's doing really well, you can go, I don't know, just
I got it.
thoughts there.
okay.
Are we good?
Any further public input on this page?
Are there any more
Thank you.
troublemakers out there?
Okay. Next page.
Okay, attendance. Regular attendance is required. Now we're getting into the stuff that caused us to want this handbook to come forward, which is the attendance and the unexcused absence issues. Regular attendance is required of all board members who shall attend in person and not by electronic means. And attendance shall be recorded in the minutes and on the attendance record form. There is an attendance record form that is used now for the Board of Adjustment. Those will be included in the second workshop. It has been a form that has worked out very well, and it could certainly be used for all the boards. And then for excused absences, there is actually a definition of excused absences in the city code. This language here tracks that language from the code. An excused absence occurs when a board member is unable to attend a regular meeting due to unavoidable and essential business or personal matters, personal or immediate family illness, or an immediate family emergency or bereavement. I did add the words immediate family in there. And then for any absence, whenever possible, the member shall notify the recording secretary of the anticipated absence prior to the meeting, and the chair shall determine whether an absence is excused. That language about the chair being the determiner of when an absence is excused appears in multiple places in our documents, and so I've moved that into this section here. Then when I got to removal, that got to be very interesting. In the city code, there are removal provisions for the CPAB and the Board of Adjustment. In the Florida statutes, there are removal provisions for the Code Enforcement Board, the Retirement Plans Board, Comprehensive Planning Advisory Board, and the P&Z Advisory Board. In addition, Florida statutes deals with removal provisions for Code Enforcement Board in a separate section of the statute, and the two provisions regarding removal from CEB in the Florida statute are conflicting. I found that more than once. So here's what I'm suggesting. At the discretion of the city council, any board member may be removed for cause. This is language out of the Florida statute, and they define cause as malfeasance, misfeasance, neglect of duty, habitual drunkenness, incompetence, permanent inability to perform official duties, or felony or misdemeanor conviction. And there's the Florida site. And then I added that neglect of duty shall include excessive unexcused absences, and this is where we need to define what we mean by that. And so two choices out of our current code are, if you're absent, have an unexcused absence, first of all, from 3 regular meetings in any 12 consecutive months, or unexcused absence from 2 out of 3 consecutive regular meetings. I am suggesting, first of all, the 2 out of 3 consecutive regular meetings is the statutory requirement regarding the Code Enforcement Board, and the Florida statute regarding the Code Enforcement Board is missing 2 out of 3 consecutive regular meetings, and those are excused or unexcused. And what I'm suggesting here is that we say you have excessive, you will be removed if you have 2 unexcused absences out of 3 consecutive regular meetings. And because we're bound by the 2 out of 3 meeting provision for code enforcement under Florida statute, I am proposing that we make that language consistent across the board. And I think that when we look at the fact that we're talking about unexcused absences, not excused absences, but unexcused, that is not a draconian requirement, and that it could reasonably apply to all boards. And then the recording secretary shall notify the city clerk of such individuals. I did include in here a process so that we know how to handle these when we have such a situation. So before notifying the city council and before removal is initiated, the city clerk shall contact the individual to determine if he or she is interested in remaining on the board with assurance of regular attendance, or if they desire to resign or be removed. When you are dealing with removal from CEB, retirement plans, CPAB, or PZAB, they may be removed only by resolution specifying the facts which are the basis for removal after reasonable notice and an opportunity to be heard or given to the board member. That's out of the Florida statute. And in addition, another way that you must remove code enforcement board people, according to the Florida statute, is the board itself declares the seat vacant without going through any of this process. And both of those provisions are in Florida statute regarding the code enforcement board. And then vacancies just is what we're doing now. You just fill the unexpired term. And if you want to take discussion on that now before we get into meetings.
Okay. Question on this page, first 3 or first 4.
Yeah, under attendance, I think it should just say who attended in person. I don't really think you need to say by electronic means, Skype or interactive electronic means. Or if we're going to add what information which is similar to what's in the red, it should be similar to what's in our policy. They're different. I have the policy, but you know, unless it's what I forget the wording, but it's an emergency by the family or whatever. You know, there's times when council people have it attended via phone because of that, and it either needs to be the same as what the city council is, or they just need to be here in person.
Well, actually, it doesn't need to be the same as the council. Our city charter makes provisions for requirement attendance at regular city council meetings, regardless of whether the absences are considered excused or unexcused. This provision here, and the language is out of the part in red is out of the council policies and procedures document. So when we as a city council have attendance requirements, regardless of whether an absence is excused or unexcused, state law provides that in certain circumstances they can attend by electronic means. That provision is not necessary for boards because there is no minimum attendance requirement as long as your absences are excused. So if you have an excused absence, there is no reason why you have to be sure that you are at that meeting in some way or another. So that's why having the difference is legitimate.
No, I completely understand an excused absence is an excused absence. But just like city council, Ms. Councilwoman Gott attended by phone, there's a reason why you can sometimes attend by phone. It's not an excused absence, but in circumstances that are just the same as you could attend by phone. There was that one exception. And I'm just saying it should be consistent across the board for not only us, but for the boards as well.
Other questions, since you have the floor, if you'd want to, is there any other on that first section we've covered?
Oh, yeah, excused absences. So they would have to notify the recording secretary, not the chair.
You know where to find the recording secretary. You may not know where to find the chair, and also by contacting the chair directly, you may find yourself in a sunshine law issue, and so.
So this recording secretary is then going to contact the chair, and the chair will determine whether an absence is excused.
That's correct.
So I assume that when this booklet goes out, the board members will know who the recording secretary is for each board? Okay.
Any further?
Removal, I really have a problem with this. These are volunteer board members. I just think it should say neglect of duty and excused absences, but to get into malfeasance, misfeasance, habitual drunkenness, incompetence, a permanent inability to perform official duties, a felony or misdemeanor, how in the world are we going to check on these issues? I just think it's really inappropriate. It's very harsh. I can see it being a turnoff for some people. When they come to the boards, it just should say neglect of duty and or the unexcused absences, which is kind of the problem we're having really is the unexcused absences. I just, I don't think how, I just don't think it's appropriate.
This handbook is intended to cover everything, and this is language straight out of Florida statute. At the discretion of the city council, any board member may be removed for cause, which the statute defines as all those elements. And if somebody isn't tough enough to accept what the Florida statute says, then they're probably not tough enough to serve on the board.
Well, I just think that the handbook should be in a friendly format. It starts off very friendly and way, and then all of a sudden, at the discretion of the city council, you may be called for malfeasance, misfeasance, negligence, habitual drunkenness. I mean, it's just,
We
if
are
it's in the
governed by
statute, it's in
Florida
the statute,
statute.
and neglect is neglect, and it's up to us if somebody, if this happens to someone and it's brought forward to us, then we discuss it, but to put it out here in a handbook, I just don't agree with it.
Okay, go ahead with your other comments on it, and then we'll.
No, that's it. Up until
Okay.
then.
Any other comments on this section from any other member of council? Okay, I'll open this portion up to the floor.
John Fergus, 135 Maple. As far as the issue that's just being discussed about relieving people, you're putting them on notice. If it's not in there, you've concealed from the volunteers it's like driving through Georgia and find out that their maximum speed limit's 35 miles an hour and you're doing 55 because that's the speed limit here, and suddenly you get pulled over. You know, it's people ought to know the rules under which they're playing. It's like playing football and find out that you're not allowed to do a forward pass. Gee whiz, you get penalized. At least it sets the rules.
Thank you. Any further? Please.
My one question from this would just be is where we say not by electronic means, Skype or so. So my question is, so what would be the point? If you're not there in person, but you can make it there by Skype or by phone, but it's still going to be considered, an unexcused absence, then I shouldn't even try to call in, or I shouldn't try to Skype, because there's no advantage to me. Basically, I'm not going to get credit for calling in or listening and being part of the meeting. So from that point, I would just say, if it doesn't count that I call in or that I can do it by Skype, then you might as well say I might as well have to be there in person, or it's unexcused, or you can get an excuse for it. But I mean, calling in, to me, you're not going to get any benefit from it. That's how I read that. I mean, that may not be true, but that's just what I'm getting is when you say not by electronic means, there's no benefit in me trying to attempt to call into the meeting. I'm not going to get credit for being there, so I might as well not call in. And the only other part about, just a suggestion, I know what we're talking about, we talk about removed for cause, and we're explaining what cause is. Maybe like normal things, you just would have a glossary at the end of this, and you could have some of the stuff, when you want to define it, you just put in at the end, you know, cause, and you can say what cause is, and it's just like in the glossary in the back of the handbook. And that way, if there's any other terms, as we're going through, I know what we're doing is we're saying what the term is, then we're explaining what the term is in the paragraph. But instead of doing that, we could just take that explanation or whatever that is and put that at the very end of the thing. So if someone says, what is cause? I see 2 points. Number one, you're right, it doesn't sound so direct and so harmful and so negative to you up front. But if you ever get into the case about, well, your idea of cause is not my same idea of cause, you can always refer back to the glossary or explanation of terms or whatever like you would have in a normal publication is cause is in a description. And then, I don't know what, you know, obviously we have some more to go through, but there may be some other terms in here that we could explain in a glossary section at the back of the book. This is what this means. That way, should we ever run into a situation that says, well, you say for cause, what does cause mean? Well, you go at the back of the book, under the glossary section, cause is described as, and it puts it in there. Just a thought.
Okay. Thank you. Floor's still open? Hearing none, bring it back.
Can we, on the attendance, can't we just say regular attendance in person is required of all board members, period?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute, if all board members, period, how are they going to attend?
Regular attendance in person
Oh,
is
in
required.
All right.
Regular attendance in person is required of all board members.
And strike the rest of that sentence?
Strike the rest of the
It says that, it
sentence.
just was worded differently. Who shall attend in person, period. But just worded better, the way he stated it.
That's good, Doug.
And I wouldn't have a problem with,
Is that all right with council?
Yes.
and I wouldn't have a problem with having definitions somewhere else if we can clear it up that way so that it doesn't sound as negative in the beginning. I mean, if we had a definition for cause in the back, and I kind of like what Steve's bringing up there. I think if there's other areas where we can have words that might be defined somewhere other than in the statement that we're trying to make this a little more user-friendly, I'm okay with that. I mean, I want to have the definition here. It needs to be in. I don't care
Okay.
whether it's in the paragraph or in a definition, but I like having it there.
I'm personally, I'm fine with it there, because if I'm reading this, I'm going to know right off the bat how to deal with it from a personal standpoint without having to go back and look it up in a glossary someplace. I think it's just better to have it right up front there. Does it come across as a little bit caustic? Yeah, maybe so, but at least it lays it out for you as to what the expectations are. There's no gray areas there.
Bottom line, state it correctly in one place only.
Okay.
I'm trying to get us away from covering topic A in more than one place.
Okay.
This language is out of the Florida statute. We are governed by Florida statute. And this is the first time I've ever heard of people not being able to handle language out of the Florida statute. We are governed by it.
Well, you got the statute cited there, too.
I do.
Reference the statute.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay.
And to be honest, the reference of all this constantly about statute, we are governed by Florida statute, but to me, it's pretty intimidating. You sit on the board, geez, do I need to know this statute? Do I need to know that statute? This should be a user-friendly manual for board members that are volunteering in the city. And so you could reference in the back Florida statute and attach them or whatever. Actually, I wouldn't even attach them because they change constantly, and they could look them up online so they're familiar with them. It's just supposed to be a user-friendly handbook. And the attendance was the big issue we were worried about because we have had a serious issue with attendance. So You know, that's my opinion. I think that it should be very friendly, and again, all this stuff about Florida statute can be very intimidating to volunteers just on a board member, a board, particularly if it's an advisory board only, such as beautification or Sampson's Park, so.
I'm okay with it being there.
I put the citations in here on purpose so that everyone could see what is governing this language, so that people would know we didn't just pull this out of the air and throw it in here. There's a basis for what's in this handbook, and if people want to then go to that citation and look at it, they can do so, and they'll know where to find it.
Okay. Let's continue on. Any other comments at this point? Okay, we'll start at meetings.
Okay, can you give me some guidance on the choices for removal? Is it from 3 regular meetings in any 12-month consecutive months, or what I'm recommending, which is 2 unexcused out of 3 consecutive regular meetings?
I like 2 out of 3
Okay?
unexcused.
First council?
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Councilman Dean?
I'm kind of on the fence. 3 regular meetings in 12 consecutive months, or 2 out of 3 consecutive regular meetings. I mean, some of these boards, their meetings are pretty spread out, so I'm fine either way.
Okay, thank you.
And then just one other thing, before notifying the...
Wait, hang on. Are we saying 2 out of 3 consecutive? Okay.
Yes. Okay, sure. Before we move on.
So if you don't meet those attendance requirements, you're automatically off the board, correct?
If you don't meet those attendance requirements, no, you go to the next sentence. The recording before now, the city clerk should contact the individual to determine if he or she is interested in remaining on the board with assurance of regular attendance, or if they desire to resign or be removed. There's your being nice part. We're trying to put you on notice that there's a problem here, and are you still interested? If so, start attending.
Well, I think that on some of these boards, and it's in our code already, like Board of Adjustment, I think if you miss 2 consecutive meetings, you're automatically removed. And these boards are important, and so to not have a quorum for applicants is very, very important. So I think the attendance should be automatic removal, just like it's already in the code, rather than go through this whole process, which is what we're doing now. So it's time-consuming, and we're not getting anywhere with it.
Okay, that's your opinion. Thank you. Any further?
I just got a question. Lorraine, got a question here. The recording before the city council, in other words, the recording secretary or whoever contacts this person to determine if they're still interested.
The city clerk.
Okay, all right. And let's say Lenore calls me and says, oh, yeah, I'm still interested, and I'm going to be there. You can count on me from here on out. Next meeting, I don't show up. How?
Then the council can take action to remove them.
Okay, so I guess my question is the clock doesn't reset.
No.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can add some comment to that effect.
Yeah, I just.
That would clarify it, something to clarify it.
But remember, these are unexcused absences.
Right, correct.
So,
And there's
I mean,
another
a lot of
point.
them are excused. I mean, if you're, you're talking about 2 out of 3 consecutive meetings where someone didn't even make an attempt to contact the secretary to get to the chair to say, I'm sick, or my family member's sick, or there's been a funeral. So to me, there's no excuse for that. You've got to make the attempt if you want to be on the board, and if you miss 2 out of 3 consecutive meetings, I'm sorry, you're off the board, you're removed.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Okay.
Give me just a second here.
Okay. Is there,
Okay. And then on
question right there real quick on it.
Go ahead.
They missed 2 out of 3. Recording secretary, when are we going to find out about it? And then can we remove them if we feel that the person is not attending? Let's say he misses the next meeting. Do we automatically get that on our...
Were you talking to...
I'm sorry. They missed 2 out of 3 consecutive meetings. They're called, oh, yes, we're going to attend. They missed the next meeting, unexcused. Does that automatically come to us then?
That's what I'm going to add.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure there's a procedure there to, it doesn't, because they can say anything they want. That's basically what happens right
Yeah.
now. Okay.
Okay. And then regarding the statutory removal provisions for the Code Enforcement Board, well, I guess you can do it two ways.
Why don't we have Jim look at that and make a recommendation, what he feels would be the correct, you may have both of them in there. I mean, if they're both in Florida statute, they
Yeah,
both apply.
my recommendation is going to be to follow the procedures in Florida Statute 162.05, where it specifically addresses the Code Enforcement Board. In 112.501, it talks about boards created by general law or city charter, which in our case happens to be code enforcement, retirement, and so forth. So when I get to the boards themselves, I'm going to put the removal provisions in accordance with 162.05. And let that be the prevailing.
That would be the superseding, or the
Yeah.
superseding
Yeah. I think so.
enforcement anyway, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Meetings.
Open meetings, this is nothing new here. Florida Sunshine Law. Minutes have to be kept, and you don't need audio or video recordings, but if required, they must be kept. And then under public notice, this got very interesting. Reasonable public notice is required for all meetings subject to the Sunshine Law. That law does not define reasonable notice, so the type of notice depends upon the situation and the board involved. However, the time and manner of notice must be sufficient to enable the media and general public to attend. And while Florida courts, specifically the first and third DCAs, have held that publishing an agenda is not required, the Florida Attorney General suggests, and I'm giving you that word in quotes because that's out of the Attorney General's opinion, suggests the following guidelines. First of all, notice should be prominently displayed and so forth, and we're doing that. Then secondly, regular meetings should have at least 7 days' notice. The city has been requiring 24 hours notice, except for crack, which has been requiring 3 days' notice, but I don't think they've been, I don't think anybody knows that. Special meetings suggested should have 24 to 72 hours notice. Again, we've been requiring 24 hours notice. And emergency meetings should have the most appropriate and effective notice under the circumstances. City code provides that prior notice is not required for emergency city council meetings. So there is nothing wrong with what we are doing in terms of that 24-hour notice. The Attorney General suggests something different. So, and also keep in mind that what they say constitutes notice is posting on the bulletin board, and we do that more than 24 hours in advance, but our requirement is has been 24 hours. So what do you want to do about that?
Somebody start? Are you going to go?
No, go ahead.
I don't even think this section needs to be in here. It's an administrative issue. It's talking about noticing the meetings, which has nothing to do with a board member. So it just kind of makes the document long, and it's great information, but it really doesn't need to be in this handbook.
Well, it needs to be in here because if a board decides that they want to call a meeting, they need to know what their notice requirement is.
But the staff does that. So.
Let me just, we can get to that point. Let's stick to the point of, there's the information on this page, on that meetings, what you want. Other than you want it out, that's another issue.
Well, I'm sure it's going to stay, but I don't think we need to reference Florida General, Attorney General, all this thing. I mean, again, this is supposed to be a user-friendly handbook. I don't think it needs to be in here. It's a noticing requirement that the staff needs to do. It's supposed to be a friendly handbook, give some guidance, maybe reference to Florida statutes so people can look them up because they do change. And this actually, is Florida statute could change and change this whole context. You never know. But I don't think this needs to be in here at all.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
Lorraine, just a question. You said that it has to be properly noticed on a board. Is our website considered a board?
Our thing right out there. That
Okay.
bulletin board is,
But my question is in the public's eyes, is the internet website, Satellite Beach, considered a board of posting?
I can't answer that. I can only tell you what the law considers a
Okay.
posting.
Okay, all right, I just want to make it clear, because that's one of the, why is it on the wall versus not on the internet, that sort of thing. So that's why, I just want to bring it out.
Yeah, well, the adding it to the internet is good. That's gilding the lily.
Okay,
The law does not require that.
okay.
The law requires it on that bulletin board right there.
But we can't arbitrarily put it on the website and not put it on the website. So we either got to, this is a question, not a comment. We either put them all on the board, or we put them all on the board and the website, but we don't say, well, this month we'll put it on the board, next month we'll put it on the website. So it's got to be by administrative. You're saying, and this is a question, you're saying that we're not going to put them on the internet anymore, is what I'm getting, unless we're going to always put it on the internet.
No, that's
No,
not
I'm
what
not saying that.
Okay,
we're saying is that the board, outside by law, is where we have to post it.
okay,
So it's going to be posted there.
At the
because
very
that-
least.
At the least.
okay,
And if we have time and it gets posted on our webpage, then it's just posted too, but it has to be posted out there.
but we're not guilty of any negligence
by
by
law.
not putting it on the,
Web,
is that correct? Okay, all right, sounds good.
that's correct.
I'm okay.
And
I'm okay with
I'm
the
not
time.
intending to put all of this in here. I've put this in here for your attention, to bring the issue to you so that you can give me some guidance on what you want in here in terms of notice.
Okay. Any other,
I'm fine with the notice that, it's been working for our city
24 hours?
24 hours.
Okay.
If the CRA specifically says 3 days, then that should be, 36 hours or 40.
Why are we doing that? Why?
Why are we even talking about this? It has nothing to do with a board member.
I
I'm
think
fine
that,
with it.
well, I think what the reason we're doing, to be honest, the meeting is because if you're going to be on the board and you're going to continue on to be on the board and eventually be chair of the board, you have to know what those requirements are for that. I think so. And to be very honest with you, to me, what I'm reading here is a lot of information. It's going to be reworded and written, again, once we do all the cross-outs. But there's no way I feel personally that this is a harsh document to people in public at all, not even close. And the reason, because we need this. We need to be able to hand this to someone. And a lot of these boards, being quasi-judicial, you need to know what the...
Well, you do need to know what quasi-judicial
Absolutely
is,
do.
but I don't think you need to know what the notice is.
If I'm on that board, to the meeting. So I don't. I think it's fine. If it's been working with the 24 on this, well, I change
and I'm
it.
proposing that we change crack to 24. There's no reason for,
And
If
Courtney,
it-
you might have
Or
to put this
separate
on the
notice
list too. Florida Statute 162 Code Enforcement has different noticing requirements. So have Jim look into that, please, if you're going to keep that.
Okay, thank you. This time, open up the meeting portion to public comments.
John Fergus, 135 Maple. It's obvious we have a philosophical difference of opinion here. Either this is a comprehensive, let the people know what the rules are and how to do it, or it's a gentle kind of a guide. And we all know that I have personal experience with dealing with the eyeballs out there that watch for the misstep of anybody having anything to do with the city. Whoever is involved in the city should know where all the bear traps and other problems lie. And it should be referenced by Florida statute and should be very clear where you need to step and where you need to avoid stepping. The slightest little slip, and somebody may have you in front of the Ethics Commission. We owe it to the people to protect them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Hearing none?
And this handbook is also intended to be of help to the council. Got questions about boards, look in here, also to the staff. And so my question is, I'm going to ask David a question. David, do you know of any reason for that 3 days' notice for crack? No. I'm proposing it be 24 hours for all the boards except for emergency meetings.
Okay, and fine, but also it's been asked to have that checked to make sure it's conforms with state statute.
That was for code enforcement.
Code enforcement?
Yeah,
Okay,
that was for
sorry.
code enforcement.
So are you all in agreement?
Yes.
24 hours notice for all boards, okay. Hang on.
Mr. Cobb, that doesn't mean you can't beat that, right?
Right. I can't hear it.
You put stuff up on Friday before a Wednesday meeting, that's pretty helpful.
Yeah,
He's saying you can put it up
I
before.
exceed that.
Yes.
He's
it could
saying
be-
you can put it up before the meeting.
The latest it can be, the latest it can
Minimum.
be.
The minimum.
Okay. Next page.
And then the rescheduled or continued meetings are handled in the same way. Then on the next page is agendas. I put all of this stuff in red here because I thought you'd find it as interesting as I did. Agendas are decided by city staff in coordination with the chair. That's ongoing procedure, and board members may request items be added. And then with the board's consent during a meeting, the chair may change the order of agenda items. That's what we've been doing. And here's what the interesting stuff I found. Topics may be added to the agenda of a regularly scheduled, that's the language in the Attorney General opinion, of a regularly scheduled meeting. The language was, an agenda is not required to reflect every issue that may come before the governmental entity at a noticed meeting. And while the Sunshine Law does not prohibit such addition, the Florida Attorney General strongly recommends, that's the language in the opinion, that the board postpone formal action on an added controversial matter where the public has not been given notice that such an issue will be discussed. I don't think any of us knew that, frankly, and that's it's worth noting. Then under public comment, this was also interesting. The opportunity for public comment on agenda items shall be provided at all board meetings. That's our policy. It used to be that we did not have board meetings at workshop meetings, but that has been changing over time. And so I'm suggesting that the language at all board meetings. Then when I went to Florida Statute 286 it provides the following exceptions to this requirement. Ministerial acts, where public comment would cause unreasonable delay, and where the board is acting in a quasi-judicial capacity. I don't think any of us knew that. So quasi-judicial boards do not have to require public comment. And where the board is taking action on a matter where public comment was already allowed. So my question to the council is, what do you want to do about that? Shall I just say, shall be provided?
Give me an example of what you're talking about.
Well, for instance, on the Board of Adjustment, it's a quasi-judicial board.
Okay.
If they're having a hearing on a variance request, there is no requirement under Florida statute for public comment.
Courtney, we're both frowning. I don't think that's true. The board just has to weigh the evidence and determine whether it's competent substantial evidence or not.
There is actually 2 public hearing
Yeah.
requirements for certain items. Like for a rezoning, requires a 2 public hearing. That's a quasi-judicial.
We're not talking about the number of hearings. We're talking about requirement for public comment.
Right, but that public hearing includes public
Public
comment.
comment.
That's
Yeah.
the purpose of it.
Yeah, I don't want to cut out public comment.
Okay.
Definitely. So quasi-judicial, the public comment part of it is actually a very important piece of the hearing.
Yeah, and then it's up to the board to determine whether that's competent substantial evidence.
Okay, so we can just make a blanket statement, policy statement, that the opportunity for public comment on agenda items shall be provided at all board meetings, period, and forget the exceptions.
I
And-
think so.
Oh, I agree.
I want to make sure that.
And the last exception was where the meeting is closed to the public. Would that apply only to city council meetings?
Yeah.
So, okay, so then that doesn't apply here. All right.
Those are usually negotiations with
Right.
unions.
Your shade meetings are
Shade
the only
meetings,
public
okay.
hearings you can have without public.
Okay.
Okay. Then regular meetings, nothing new there, or special meetings, only discuss what's on the agenda. Workshop meetings, I added the language in red just for further clarification that workshop meetings are intended to be less formal than those requiring adherence to parliamentary or other procedures in this handbook.
Okay.
And then we get into parliamentary procedure. I highlighted Scott Forsman because that addition appears in our city code, and I'm not quite sure why we're married to that particular one, so I wanted to talk to Mr. Beadle about that. Excuse me just a minute.
Okay.
One of the recommendations that I was making when I began was that we'll stop having boards do their own procedures, their own bylaws and that sort of thing. So what I would like to do is to add a provision that says regarding procedure, boards shall not establish their own rules or governing documents, for example, charters, bylaws, procedures, etc.
Finish with that page.
It was brought to my attention under discussion sequence that I can clarify under discussion sequence number 2, clarify something that is included in the procedures for citizens addressing boards, and I will do that, and it will further clarify that statement. It won't change anything, it'll just further clarify it. And then, and the rest of that under discussion sequence is the way we normally have meetings occur. Under voting, roll call votes are required on all motions. Secret ballots prohibited. And David had a conversation with me earlier today regarding roll call votes. And his point was that on his 9-member committee, soon to be board, it gets cumbersome taking a roll call vote for 9 people. And so his suggestion is something to the effect of, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I've got to figure out how to word this, that there are some boards that they must take roll call votes, like a quasi-judicial and that sort of stuff. But when you have a large board like that, you only need a roll call vote if there is any dissenting opinion, if there is a lack of consensus. And then you take a roll call vote to get the yeses and the nos on the record. And I've got to figure out how to word that to make that happen. So are you all on board with that? And I'll come back to you with some language.
Yeah, because I can tell you, the beautification board doesn't roll call anything. They just raise their hand.
Okay.
I mean, there has to be a provision that allows certain boards to operate that way.
Let's move on to council comments on this page.
Okay, I got one.
Okay.
On discussion sequence number 4, Lorraine, I've seen it a couple ways where, and Frank does it, I've done it, Dave's done it, we've all done it. We're moving on to agenda item number 15, ordinance number 715. And all of a sudden, before Frank says anything, one of us says, I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance on second reading, second. And then he goes to public comment. So you're saying we can't do that anymore?
It's not governing the council.
It's not govern the council. Okay, all right. Just want to, okay, then I'll stop talking, because that's, okay, gotcha.
And the reason why I think it's important to have this in here for boards is because you've got people on boards and you've got chairs who've never chaired before, and they need some guidance. Some guidance would be helpful on how they should steer the meeting.
Amen, gotcha. I had it backwards. Go ahead.
Okay.
Further comment?
No, I'm done. I'm done. We got it.
Anybody else comment on this page?
Yep, on regular meetings, I think it's, and I think we've always done this, the meetings need to be, the time and the date need to be established by the city council, period. Not by the board.
We've always allowed the boards to determine their own meeting times unless if there was some reason for the council to.
Regular meetings, the regular meetings
Yes.
should be established by the city council.
The policy has always been that the boards establish their own meeting times and place and frequency unless there was some reason that the council wanted to set that. That's always been the policy.
Can I just interject real quick? The only concern I would have by allowing a board to do that is if they want to switch their meeting from the day to the night, then they'll have a recording secretary that has to come in the night and get overtime for that, which is a budget expense for us, as well as an impact on the staff. So that would be only my concern with that. I didn't have another comment when we get to the So if a board, like let's say the, beautification board meets during the day, and they were actually talking about meeting at night, and I had to say, please don't do that, because if you do that, then one of our clerks need to come in to be your minute taker, and we don't have that budgeted, because they get overtime. And then it also, we only have 3 of them. So if they have, council meetings and crack board meetings and, there's only so many nighttime meetings that they can go to.
All right, then how about if I add, are established by the board with council approval?
That would be fine.
I know what we've done, but also we've always tried to have meetings in our town start at a specific time. And we recommend 7 o'clock, so whether it's a Board of Adjustments or council or so forth, there's some rhythm to it for people that they know meetings are 7 o'clock. So, I would not want a board to change that unless it was approved by council and staff.
So that's what I'm saying, as approved by council, adding that.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure, because we've changed it at times, meetings, and I think consistency is important.
And I also suspect if the board wants to change, then it would come through the city manager, who would say, yay, nay, there's a conflict, this something else is going on.
And that's what happened the last time, so I just didn't want,
And then it comes to us for a decision.
We only have so many places where people can meet, and a lot of times they're occupied. So, pretty much most of the stuff that we have in place meets on the days they meet. And I don't really see that changing.
yeah, only some, discuss it, there was some recent discussion, that's why I had that concern.
We can even have this as approved by the city manager.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, Cheryl almost said it, but that's exactly what I was going to say. Does the council really need to oversee that, or would it be to the administrative relief to let Courtney handle that?
But when we changed the CRA meeting, it came back to us to approve the day. I think it's more appropriate for, the board's work with the city manager, and that came back to us. I don't see what the big deal is. This is a yay, nay, the schedule works for the city, sure. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to say no, but, it's just a matter of, so we know which day everything is changed to.
Mayor, I just have one more.
Okay.
For the agendas, where it says agendas are decided by city staff in coordination with the chair, there are some boards that we don't do that with, like Code Enforcement and Board of Adjustment. So we set their agenda, they don't have anything to do with that, and I just didn't want like a BOA chair or a code chair to think that they can set the agendas. Right. They act more like a judge in those boards, so, and then even planning and zoning, we don't consult the chair for their agendas, so.
Lenore, did you have something?
Yeah, the code of ethics for public officers and employees, that the council is now required for training coming up in January. At my recent city code conference, they also recommended that board members get training. The Commission on Ethics website has those tutorials and training sessions There's also a little packet manual that other city clerks have provided, so that might be a reference, kind of like you did with parliamentary procedures. It gives them
Thank you.
additional information.
What she's saying is that, this
Florida Code of
code
Ethics
ethics
now.
now applies to boards.
Okay.
So we're probably going to have to add that to this.
I didn't hear what, the Florida,
The code of ethics, correct?
Code of ethics of public officers and employees. Council has a requirement for training.
they're recommending that they also, board members get it, yes. I got it.
Free training.
Okay.
We can
Oh, free
provide the
training.
documentation and provide the reference website.
Okay, thank you. At this time, let me open up any public comment on this page. Thank you. Bring it back to council. Any? Okay, moving on.
Okay, the procedures for citizens addressing boards, I just lifted the applicable portions out of our policies and
Okay.
procedures. Next page is board officers. What I found is that when you elect officers is a mishmash among the boards for no reason, so I'm suggesting that we just say as the last item of business at its first regular meeting each year, each board shall elect their chair and vice chair.
Any comment on that page? Okay, thank you.
Are we on the next page?
Yes, we are. We're moving along.
Okay. Board staff council relationship. This just explains how the staff works with the boards and the staff that's appointed, except for retirement plans boards and the library board. They appoint the recording secretary for the retirement plans boards now is actually provided by the Florida League of Cities.
Okay.
On the council liaison, this is just explaining what that does and citing the city charter provision regarding the council liaison.
Okay.
The parliamentary guide will be provided next time, and it's not going to be the whole book. It's just going to be those things which you can expect to be needed in a meeting.
Any comments on that page? Okay, thank you.
I have a comment. It's probably a question for Courtney. Why doesn't the retirement board have a recording secretary?
We don't provide it. They do have one. It's the
Oh,
Florida
okay.
League of Cities that does.
Got it,
yeah.
okay. I misunderstood.
And so does the library board. We just don't provide that.
Okay.
Then the section 3
If you're going to continue.
you want to go on?
Fine.
The requirement to vote. This talks about Form 8B, which requires you to vote. And unless you have unless the matter would inure to the member's special private gain or loss. And if you look at the Florida statute, the form itself, and the Government in the Sunshine Law Manual, you will get three.
Got it. Moving too fast. Or-
You will get three different definitions of the personal relationship that is applicable here. So depending upon which source you look at, if the interest applies to your spouse or to a relative or to an immediate family member, those are the three different definitions and three different sources, then the rest of this conflict of interest thing applies. Since people will be seeing the form itself, I'm going to use the term off of the form and let the others go by. Okay?
Yep.
Are you okay with requirement to vote? Gifts? Form 9 is a requirement. Anytime you receive a personal gift worth $100 or more during any quarter calendar, you are required to file Form 9. Financial disclosure, this relates to Form 1, and it's limited financial disclosure, and this tells the boards that applies to. And also, what most people I don't think are aware of, after you get off the board, you have to file Form 1F, which closes you out. Public records, This tells you what constitutes a public record and must be retained, and what the penalties are for violating that.
Any
Then,
questions? Sorry.
Communication among board members, Sunshine Law. This spells out the things you need to be careful of and shows what the penalties are for violations. And then we get to ex parte communications with quasi-judicial boards. And it explains which ones are quasi-judicial. Our code currently says no ex parte communication shall be permitted to be made or received by any quasi-judicial board member except the city council. That statement is absolute nonsense. You can make quasi-judicial communications. The point is you must reveal them at the start of the matter being discussed during the meeting. And this spells that out. And this tells about site visits for the Board of Adjustment and PZAB. And then the ex parte communication disclosure form is a form that I prepared for the Board of Adjustment. It's a form that is based on the requirements of Florida statute, and it can apply to any of these quasi-judicial boards. And then rebuttals for ex parte and penalties for violating ex parte communications requirements. And then dual office holding, good luck with that one. I'm going to have to get with the attorney on that. It is so confusing.
Well, first, let me open up any public comment on the packet tonight. Hearing none,
John's got some.
John?
John Ferguson, 35 Maple. Where you have multiple, and you were mentioning multiple conditions, you call them conflicts in different places in statute. If there's one that is bigger than all the others, that would seem the natural one to use. But if there are three different things, and you were mentioning, I think, had to do with conflict of interest, one possibility would be to list all three. You know, it's A, B, or C. Another way to handle it.
Thank you. Any further public?
Okay.
Hearing none, back to the board. Lenore?
One recommendation under communication among board members, the third bullet down, the AGO has presented information to the clerks that they recommend rather than the board members sending information to other members, that they go through the secretary to avoid potential discussions, to also provide for public records retention with regard to the documentation. So I would include that clause in that bullet point.
Through secretary?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I couldn't hear you. Get with me after the meeting.
Courtney?
And the only thing that I would recommend is to not allow quasi-judicial ex parte communication. And the only reason why I say that is in a quasi-judicial proceeding like a BOA or rezoning or, you know, something of that nature, you don't want developers meeting with your board members or developers thinking that they can and putting that board member in that position. So I'd like to keep that up, you know, even counsel from doing that. So that's what I would put in here, is to limit that.
I agree with the recommendation, but I think you probably need to run that by Jim. I don't think you can prohibit it.
I think you, as a council, you can prohibit your board members from doing
I'd
that.
like that one also run by the attorneys.
So you're saying keep this highlighted, yellow highlighted?
Yes.
And strike except the city council?
Right. And I would, and the only thing, you know, city council can do whatever they want, obviously, but I would always recommend not meeting with, you know, any applicant for any quasi-judicial hearing. It just puts, you know, the whole point of a quasi-judicial hearing is that the evidence is an evidentiary hearing, and if you're having meetings on the side of that hearing, it puts you in a bad position.
I agree, but I just think, you know, run it by Jim. I don't think you can prohibit somebody from being.
Let Jim figure that out. Any other questions on the packet tonight? Okay, thank you very much for your work, and to the staff, thank you. The next meeting,
There was no staff.
Yeah, I was about to say, we Lenore and I have wanted to do this type of board book for a long time, and we didn't have to do anything. So we really appreciate your efforts. It's a lot harder to do this as, you know, than it is to review it. So I really appreciate it.
All right,
And we really
Not to,
are happy that we didn't have to do it.
fabulous, we're getting it going. I'm sorry to hold you down. When do we want to have the next workshop?
Your microphone.
I'm sorry, when do we want to have the next workshop? I want to keep this going. And it could be nothing more than the workshop of getting the questions answered on this particular part of the packet from Jim that we've been asked to do.
No, those are nominal, they're not worth the whole
Okay?
meeting.
Then when do we want to, the next?
It's either before the league meeting or after the league meeting.
Oh, it's got to be after, I've got
Okay.
so many things on my plate right
It's fine.
now.
Well, again, I just want to keep this process going, and it's a great piece of work, and I want to keep it going. We need this.
Yeah.
So the league is
16th or something?
14, 15, or 13 through the 16th. We have a council on the 20th. What's the,
You can do the 27th.
okay,
We can aim for that.
okay. Let's tentatively put that and see where we go from there. Does that suit everybody?
Yep, sure.
Okay, thank you. Any further business?
Lorraine, thank you.
Thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.
And Barbara, thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
I have to tell you,